see what that means for CSR. Because suddenly we're innovation stage, we're creating value for each other. This is win-win. This is one scenario. A very different scenario is national interest. France protects its interest, Slovenia protects its interest. CSR in that context means very different things. And success of you as a CSR manager becomes, did I do a good job to protect my interest, not global interest? Another option is patched up globalization, not really a true win-win, but a kind of patched up win-win, where there are a lot of gaps, and countries like Haiti that face big problems left alone because we don't have time for you anymore. Sorry. That's another option. And this scenario D is when everyone, it's not about countries anymore, it's individuals. Everyone goes for their own. That creates a very different reality for all of us in terms of public trust, because if our people, if community, individuals don't have trust in anyone anymore, not in banks, not in governments, not in UN, not in the EU, not in anything, they only care about themselves, that becomes a very different reality for a company and social responsibility management. I hope our scenario will be the one that creates win-win. I'm positive that the only way business can survive is only when the business is working in an environment that is doing well. Business cannot survive in a world that fails. It cannot survive in a world that fails. So I hope we find a scenario in which the world succeeds very well. And I look forward, and I will skip this, I will look forward to the discussion with the panel on what do you think is a more realistic versus less realistic future for all of us when it comes to social responsibilities. Thank you.
Thank you, and hello to everyone. I think this introductory lecture by Nadia makes a lot of sense also from where I come from. Just thinking about CSR 1.1 as some kind of old paradigm of thinking, and I think this nicely applies to the field I come from, which is environmental protection, and then moving on to sustainability. Because we're seeing exactly the same thing there. So environment 1.1, or 1.0 rather, means the old-fashioned understanding of environmental protection, which is very much end of pipe, which is very much related to waste, pollution, and managing waste and pollution when it actually occurs. It's health issues related to it, it's kind of basic hygiene issues of industrial production. When we know that we are already moving into the new paradigm, when the concept of sustainable development, which is a much broader concept, but it's in environmental dimension of sustainability, is much more integrated. So I think the common ground between the CSR transition to the 2.0 and the environmental transition is actually seeing the big picture. It's looking at more in the systems way of thinking. That economy is a part of a much larger system that includes the social bit, the society as a whole, which includes the north and the south in it, and it includes the bottom of the pyramid as well as the top of the pyramid, but it also is a part of a yet larger system, which is the ecosystems and the earth as a system, as a living system in its totality, which is actually the provider not of our resources, but a lot of other services that we take for granted, such as a stable climate, for example. So I think we are now in this transition because we have actually come against the limits of this larger system with the growth of the economic system. So from my point of view, the two examples that very much link to what you have talked about is one is the carrying capacity of the climate, which is obviously a limiting factor to growth from the environmental point of view. The other one is the declining of resources, where the prices of oil have already given us a clear indication that we are already entering the beginning of the end of the age of cheap oil, which allows for inexpensive food production, industrial production, pharmaceuticals, anything we name, cheap oil is the basis of it. So from that point of view, moving on to the next level that really looks at systems as a whole, we will not look at environment as an isolated one, just like we used to look at CSR as an isolated issue, but to integrate it into the way we think about core business. And I think this, the example of Walmart is actually still a transition, because it's just one aspect of their activity. But integrating and actually providing how can we actually generate growth that does not have a negative impact and that does not drain the environment, either social or environmental. I think that's the big challenge. I think there's nothing wrong with growth per se if it's healthy growth and it doesn't destroy itself in the process. So these are just some of my first thoughts. But I would also, in this sense, looking at the crisis, which was some kind of a trigger for this discussion, say that when understanding, we're looking at the environment in the old paradigm. Obviously, the crisis is a threat, and the environment is one of the environmental concern and investment is one of the victims of this new situation, because we see a competition between environment and jobs and so forth. But in the new paradigm, there is obviously synergy. That environment is an opportunity. Because when we look at the business landscape, we see that the new paradigm businesses are actually the ones that are growing even in a decline growth situation. They're one of the few sectors or parts of companies where there actually is growth. So maybe that at the moment is a contribution.
Richard,
I can hear you.
all right, Richard, I say go ahead. I've introduced you already to the audience. There's about 100 of us here representing businesses, multinationals, NGOs, activists Slovenia. We're very excited to have you with us today. Hello from everyone. And I just suggest we go ahead and listen to you speak. We already know how well qualified you are to address us today. So please, I'm very excited to have you. Go ahead.
Okay, well first of all, thank you very much. I'm very honoured to be asked to speak at this your fourth conference. I congratulate the group, here's to you, Barbara, and all the work that's going on in Slovenia on corporate social responsibility. I have two connections actually, not just one, with all of you at this conference. Firstly, I've been very proud to be a member of the European Parliament during the years when Europe has enlarged and that Slovenia has become our full partner in the European Union, and that I have Slovenian member of the European Parliament colleagues. And it's great that you're part of the European Union, and it's great for me to have been there. For me, it's been part of history to be there as you and our fellow partner countries have joined, and it's great to be here. I wish I could be with you today, but it's really great to be talking to you. But of course, the second